I move the CRW Board of Commissioners reconvene the regular meeting. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Now we have to recess it.
Yeah,
Oh, public comment.
I don't have a sheet up here.
No.
Is there any public comment?
Karen, I think, wants to talk.
I signed up.
Geez, Dawn.
It's been a long week.
I bet. Before the budget hearing.
Before.
Number 5.
Item's not on the agenda. I've got a handout for 3 minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
So, something to read later. Oops. Gary Kerr, ratepayer and budget committee member. I wasn't able to come to the May 14th meeting on the audit report for the backbone item. And I listened to the presentation and I read the documents. And this is some comments and questions about that presentation. I was concerned when I listened to it because I didn't hear answers to most of the questions that were in the March board meeting and the February 28th board meeting, which ones I also watched, the meeting I also watched. So I was concerned about that. And so there's a little write-up about some of that issue in there. But in my time limit here, specifically, I need to let you know that there's an ORS statute, 801, 030, 150, 105 or something like that, it's in the document, governing accountants. And there are many of their work papers which are available to the entity that hired them. Okay, so some of the lack of detail that you had in the 14th presentation should be in some of those work papers, and you as a board can request that since you hired them to do the work. And they can provide those to you to help you understand a little bit more of some of the details behind some of their statements and computations. So, I wanted to let you know that. My major concern was that I don't know who wrote the scope of the engagement. She said that he interviewed everybody on the board, and that was part of the basis for the scope. But I don't know whoever finalized that or whoever on the board reviewed it before they actually began work. And that shouldn't have happened because it was a specific engagement, not an audit governed by statute. Federal and state statutes. So somebody on the board should have reviewed that scope of work. And maybe you've gotten different answers at the presentation by having reviewed that. So just some information for you with regard to that particular issue. So, thank you.
Oh, now the budget committee meeting.
Yeah, we have to.
We had that.
Yeah,
public
so
comment,
90,
but-
yeah, 90 degrees.
Right,
So,
okay.
Okay, I move the CRW Board of Commissioners.
I thought you were gonna do it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I move the CRW Board of Commissioners recess the regular meeting and open the budget hearing.
aye. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is our budget hearing, so this is the follow-up to the Budget Committee meeting that we held, where the budget was approved by the full committee, and this is your opportunity to adopt the budget for the upcoming biennium. I've got some information here about what was included in that approved budget, and feel free to interrupt and ask questions along the way. But we have general fund appropriations in the personnel services for the 2-year period of $1,408,000. This includes that payoff of the PERS transitional liability that was added towards the end of the budget committee and discussed by the budget committee. And that will reduce our ongoing PERS rate that we pay for the next 2 years and every year thereafter. So instead of just adding on to the rate that we currently have, it will be a reduced rate. The materials and services appropriation is $8,851,000. That includes basically all of our operational stuff. It does have a few one-time things in it, or one in particular, we have the water treatment plant facilities plan is in there, which is kind of a bigger chunk than we normally have in our ordinary operational costs. And we have the capital outlay appropriation, which is $1,411,000. And this, again, the original budget proposal that we gave to you did not include $65,000 for the fuel storage project that we're going to do. And that fuel storage project will have fuel in tanks on our facilities so that we can get access to it in an emergency. We do have transfers out of the general fund to the capital reserve and debt service. So the general fund pays all of the debt service by transferring money to that revenue bond fund. And we've also got $2 million each of the 2 years that will transfer to the capital reserve fund, and that money is available then to spend on any capital projects that we have. And we've included an operating contingency, which we typically do. By law, we can have a much larger contingency than the $750,000, but we have found that that is sufficient for meeting the needs of the district if we have something unexpected that comes up. So that's the general fund. Then we have appropriations in some of the other funds. We have the capital fund. So we have the capital improvement projects fund, which is our regular renewal and replacement of our system. And so we have 8 projects that are included in the capital outlay for the CIP fund that total $3.6 million. The bond construction fund appropriation is $3.1 million. That will complete the final 3 projects of backbone phase 1. So that will get us, provide sufficient funding to complete the 152nd Avenue Reservoir, the Hatton Road pump station, and the Hatton Road transmission main. Of the projects that were in phase 1, those are the only 3 that will extend beyond June 30th of this year. We also have appropriations in some other funds. The System Development Charges Reserve Fund will have an ending fund balance greater than $2 million when we get to June 30th. We've had quite a lot of activity in that fund. So this budget plans to appropriate $2 million of that money to go into covering costs of the CIP bond construction work. And in the revenue bond fund appropriations, we have to appropriate for debt service. So the $3.4 million covers the debt service on both the 2009 refunded bond issue as well as the 2016 bond issue. And in this biennium, we're going to pay off the 2009 bond, so then we'll just have the 2016 remaining until we go out for additional debt. And then we have the Clackamas Regional Water Supply Commission Activity Fund, and we have appropriated money in that fund for personnel services, materials and services, and then transfers to the general fund. The transfers to the general fund are made up of essentially the wholesale water rates that come in through that CRWSC fund, and then we move the wholesale water rates to the general fund. Personnel services and materials and services is where we record costs that we incur on behalf of the CRWSC as a whole, or that we then bill half of it to Sunrise, or services that we provide to Sunrise Water Authority, and we bill them for those services. Some of those things include processing the payroll, and then we've also got some procurement activities, as well as we host their computer servers here and maintain and look out for those. So we did build the budget based on some goals and priorities, and one of the priorities was to complete the Phase 1 backbone projects. So that has been included in this budget, and for this biennium, which actually will be in the first half of the first year, we will be spending money from the capital reserve fund as well as the system development charges reserves. We've also included for capital improvements 8 CIP projects at $3.6 million, and those essentially are items that were identified in the water system master plan. But we also look at them, we prioritize them by where do we have a problem? Do we have excessive water loss? Have we had to go repair main breaks? So that's how those projects are selected. Additionally, outside of the capital side for kind of operational or special activities that we want to do is the water treatment plant facilities master plan, which I mentioned earlier. We're going to initiate the strategic planning process, which I know the general manager has spoken with the board about, and that'll be coming up in the fall. We've discussed conducting a customer satisfaction survey. It's been a few years since we've done that, and it's nice to do that periodically and see where we stand. And then also to continue with our agreements and processors where we are collaborating with other agencies in the area. So those are some of our budget priorities besides the ordinary ongoing budget or operational activities that we do. So here's a total of the budget. You can see it's significantly lower than the total budget for biennium 17-19, and that's because we are down to the tail end of those backbone Phase 1 projects. And so we've reduced our bond proceeds fund is reduced down to the bottom basically, and our CIP bond construction fund is quite a bit lower than it was in this last biennium. We also look at the budget with an eye on some of the policies that we have in place, including the financial reserve policy that was approved by the board. And that includes the transfer to the capital reserve fund. It includes maintaining an ending fund balance in the general fund that is at least equal to 90 days of reserves. And in this particular budget, we've got 144 days of operating reserves. And then we have the contingency of 750. So those are all specific policies that were approved by the board. And then we also take a look at our debt covenants. So while we've got to pay the debt service on the outstanding bonds, we have to have net revenue, including or without the SBC of 100%, and as budgeted, we're at 262%. And then we have, when you include the SDC ratio, it needs to be 125%, and this budget is at 310%. So now it's opportunity if there's any public comment on the budget, and then certainly I'm happy to answer any questions or have any further discussion.
So this is exactly the same as the one that we approved, there's no changes?
Yes, we are not asking for any difference from what was approved. And as I reminded, we did approve the budget a little bit different than proposed, but that includes the transitional liability payment and the fuel storage.
Right,
But that was
right, I
approved by the
remember
budget
that.
committee, yes.
Any other?
Is there?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Any public comments? No.
I move the CRW Board of Commissioners close the budget hearing and reconvene the regular meeting.
Okay, and I would like to make a motion.
I need a second on that one, please.
What?
I need a second on her motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so I would like, I am making a motion to change the order of the agenda until Commissioner Garrison arise because we have a lot of important action items and I do not feel comfortable with not having our fourth commissioner. So I propose that we, let's see, we could just start where the action items finished, which would be the consent agenda and informational reports. And then when he arrives, we could go back to the regular agenda. A second for that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes unanimously.
So we would be,
So if I understood it correctly, you want to pick up at the consent agenda item?
I think that's Rusty now.
oh, is it?
I think so.
Okay, well, maybe we don't have to do this then. We can just wait a moment to move on.
Ta-da!
Yes, here.
Okay, I take back my motion.
Can we do
Wasn't
that?
it already approved?
You need a motion to return to the.
I move we return back to the normal agenda.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
You get some more
Who's
reliable.
on first?
Hello, Rusty.
We didn't want to do any of the action items till you arrived.
Thank you.
So,
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, my brother-in-law is in hospital in CCICU at Legacy Emmanuel.
Oh,
He's not doing so well
oh,
at 86.
oh, well,
But
Well, I'm glad you could join us.
okay, so we're,
All right, so then we just move on to action items, then, right?
action item 1, do you want me to go ahead and, okay. Action item 1. I move to approve resolution number 08-2019, adopting the budget and making appropriations for the 2019-2021 biennium.
Second.
Commissioner Andrew?
Yes?
Commissioner French?
Yes.
Commissioner Garrison?
yes,
Commissioner Kalani?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Agenda item 2. I move to approve resolution number 09-2019, bad debt write-off for FY 2018-19 uncollected water bills.
Second.
And I do have a little presentation on this. So what we are looking at when we do the bad debt write-off is any bills from accounts that were closed prior to July 1st of 2018. So these accounts have been closed for a year, and we haven't received payment on them. In running the reports, we have 79 accounts that we're talking about. 4 of those accounts are in bankruptcy, and so we are limited in the efforts that we can take to collect, although when we get the bankruptcy information, we put our paperwork in so that we can be in line to get anything, if there's anything available. So the bankruptcy accounts are or $1,900 approximately. We have a couple of commercial and industrial accounts, so businesses that have moved out of the district and didn't pay their final bills. That's a total of $311. And then we have 73 residential accounts, and that's a little over $9,000. So the proposed write-off for this fiscal year would be $11,384. Now, of that, we have a collection company that we use, and we send any of these uncollectible accounts on kind of a regular basis to the collection company. And when we collect something throughout the year that was written off in prior years, which we do, then that reduces our budget line for that bad debt write-off. And so far this year, we've collected about $1,200. And I think we've just got a new payment from the collection company, so that's gonna increase just a little bit more.
I'm sorry, is that how much?
About $1,200,
$1,200.
yeah. And so that, if you take that 1168 off of the 11,000, we've got 10,000, something that we will actually be writing off to the bad debt expense line. And you go, wow, that's a lot of money, but it's 0.09% of our water sales for the year. So we actually have a pretty good collection rate, and you know, that's one of the things in water when people don't pay their bill, at least as long as they're still living there, we have the option of doing shut-offs and shutting their water off, and that generally motivates them to pay. So this is the maximum amount that we'll write off. Anybody that pays us between now and June 30th will reduce that number. It will not get higher. So this is what we're proposing that we write off as our bad debt for this fiscal year. It is lower than it was last year. Last year was about 17,000, and we had almost 5,000 in bankrupt accounts last year.
Just out of curiosity, what does it cost us for these professional credit service?
Professional credit service is really a little bit different than other collection companies that I have used. They charge an admin fee and they charge interest. The admin fee they get to keep. So if somebody owes us $100 and they've added a $20 admin fee, and then the person writes them a check for $60, they're gonna get their admin fee, and we're only gonna get $40 of that $100. But if they pay in full the admin fee and the interest, they share the interest with us. So we do, on occasion, get more than we actually had on the books that the person owed us, because they share the interest part with us that they calculate on the accounts.
So it's on a per account basis, it's if they collect it, then, okay.
Yeah. Right, we don't pay
Don't pay anything
use the
unless.
service, we just let them keep some of the money that was collected.
Okay, cool, thank you.
If we don't sell the accounts to a collection agency, what kind of return would we expect after a year?
Very little, because my staff is busy billing the new customers and collecting cash from the new customers, so I don't really have
So we
a
don't done
collection
them at all?
person, and we would not have a lot of time to do that.
And the returns are simply from the credit agency dunning the
We do pursue collection on open accounts. We sometimes offer payment terms for somebody if they had like a big leak at their property or whatever. We'll do the leak relief that we've talked with the board about. And then we give them payment terms, and we do pursue collecting that. Before we send them to collections, we send an attempt to collect letter that says, hey, if you don't pay it by this date, we're gonna send you to a collection company. We have also just begun emailing those notices as well. So if somebody's getting ready to go to collection and we have their email in the system, we'll send them an email and send them the letter in the mail, and the email has been really effective. So we can get those, a lot of times we'll get the payments before they go to collection.
And
So
we're
we do
like-
take that effort.
So we're letting them know in the letter that it will go to collections.
Correct. And the other thing is the collection agency has two different statuses of accounts. So for the first 60 days, if somebody pays us or pays them directly within that first 60 days, there's no admin fee charged, and we get all the money. And so we do have people that get the intent to collect, they don't get around to it, and then they write us a check right after we've sent it off, but then we can just take it out of the collection bucket, and the collection company does not charge us any fees.
So it sounds like you feel this is the most cost-effective. Is that
Yes,
correct? Okay.
yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, call the question.
Commissioner Andrew?
Yes, Mr. French?
Yes.
Commissioner Garrison?
Yes.
Commissioner Coloni?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, the next resolution. I move to approve resolution number 10-2019, establishing wholesale water rates charged to Sunrise Water Authority effective July 1st, 2019.
Second.
And on this one, I have just a little bit of background information. We do modify the wholesale water rates every year, effective July 1st through the following June. We index it to CPI, and it also includes calculation of increased power costs. So we work with Tim Jansen, the engineer at Sunrise, and look at how much the power costs this year versus next year, and they take their proportionate share of that cost increase. And so in fiscal 18-19, we were charging them just over 70 cents per CCF, and in 19-20, it's going up to 72 cents. And so that revenue increase, if they continue at their 2.5 million gallons a day for the year, will be about $23,000. So all the other things I've been talking about tonight have been spending money. This is talking about bringing in some money, so. Yes.
We don't have a current rate for water delivered at Audie Road?
They don't take water from there.
Oh.
We will be doing that, so it's just kind of
Right,
like,
thank
to be determined, it is a little bit more expensive to deliver water to them at that site.
Isn't it only on an emergency basis right now?
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Call for the question.
Commissioner Andrew?
Yes.
Commissioner French?
Yes.
Commissioner Garrison?
Yes.
Commissioner Kalani?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
So this is the next function. I move the Clackamas River Water Board of Commissioners approve the memorandum of understanding attached as Attachment A regarding Article 15.1 of the collective bargaining agreement between CRW and Oregon AFSCME Council 75, Local 350-9, to establish a cost of living adjustment in the amount of 3.4%, effective July 1st, 2019.
Second the motion.
I don't have any PowerPoint slides, but I'll give a brief presentation. So in our collective bargaining agreement with AFSCME, it references the use of a CPI Portland that is used for the annual cost of living adjustment. Bureau of Labor Statistics, which produces that information, has discontinued that index. And therefore, the question became, what are we going to do for this final year of the collective bargaining agreement as it relates to a cost of living, since it references an index that no longer exists. The representatives from the union and staff met to discuss the possibility of putting in a substitute CPI. The discussions realized that since this is down to one last year, that it would, the energy would be better focused on trying to identify a percentage for the cost of living adjustment. And so before you is a memorandum of understanding that we're asking the board to approve and authorize me to sign on behalf of the district, which would establish that percentage at 3.4% effective July 1, 2019. This would only be in effect for this 1 year, and then the 1 year, the final year of the collective bargaining agreement. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
What was the index that the 3.4% was based on?
So we decided to stay away from referencing any index because we weren't going to come to an agreement on an index at this point in the final. So there's a range.
It's just a figure.
So it's a number. There's a range. If you look at, there's two different ways to calculate, or two different numbers that are included in the CPIs that are now available, and there's about 4 different CPIs to look at. Well, there's a lot more than 4, but 4 that we focused on. If you look at the over the month annual change, the range is anywhere from 2.9 to 3.4. If you look at the annual change that they also publish, the numbers 3.1 to 3.9. So there was a difference of opinion on which numbers to use as well.
So this sounds pretty fairly in the middle.
Yeah, the challenge is we're trying to keep true to the spirit of the agreement, which we agreed that we're going to reference the Portland CPI, and so we looked at how that was calculated and which numbers it used. Unfortunately,
It's gone.
yeah, it's gone, and unfortunately there was not a clear answer on that, so we did the best to try to come up with what we believe was a suitable solution for everybody.
Thank you.
And it's a 1 year, you know, until the end of their contract, and then we have to finish the whole thing, so. The union, I think, is pretty steadfast in what they want.
I'm ready to move.
Okay.
Great.
Question? Yes.
Commissioner Andrew?
Yes.
Commissioner French?
Yes.
Commissioner Garrison?
Yes.
Commissioner Kalani?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, next motion. I move to award the professional services contract to Corolla Engineers Incorporated for engineering services to prepare CRW's water treatment plant facilities master plan with a not-to-exceed amount of $299,657 and authorize the general manager to sign the final contract.
I need a second.
Oh, I need a second.
Second.
Okay.
So this evening, Adam Bjornstad, Chief Engineer, will be presenting.
I don't have a PowerPoint,
It's okay.
so
Good
I
evening.
apologize for that. But I'm gonna make up for it in a couple of items. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm happy to be reporting on this item for the water treatment plant facility master plan. Hard on the heels of us completing the water system master plan. The bulk of that work, of course, was done in 2018, and then the board just approved that last month officially. So this is really the next, for us as a district, the next logical step in the planning process where we actually have never done one of these on our treatment plant. We've done a variety of studies over the years, a variety of improvements over the years. The plant has been very well maintained. As you know, it's 55 years old, plus minus, and 1950s technology, but it's been very well maintained and continues to produce a high quality product for us. Really, this is a plan that will enable us to identify how we can better optimize the facility with the existing processes, how we can look to improve based on some factors that we'll consider, including looking at risks, including like seismic resiliency, looking at what happens if we have an issue with our source, the river. All of these things will be part of the analysis. I tried to summarize these important points in the write-up, so I don't want to repeat those too much, but I did want to call out a few things in the scope. But let me, well, I'll keep going. As far as steps in the process, so we'll, similar to the water system master plan, we will go through an initial data gathering process where we will compile lots of information for the engineering firm to then take that and start converting it into a written plan. And similar to the water system master plan, a facilities plan for treatment plant has similar components. You'll see a number of chapters that address existing facility, look at, again, perspective of what changes can we make to existing infrastructure. And again, this is all treatment specific, so we're not going beyond the treatment plant this time. We will look at improvement alternatives, so the firm will propose, based on the analysis they do, some categories of alternatives for us to select from. And then that'll help us establish a capital improvement summary for the treatment plant. Things like regulatory concerns, things coming down the line from the federal level that we know at some point will change how we have to treat our water. We know we have some existing challenges with capacity in our plant, including chlorine contact time, just large enough sedimentation basins to do what they need to do, including chlorine to do in the pre and the post-treatment process. So without getting into too much of that detail right now, the bottom line is we'll end up with an integrated report similar to what we came out with for the water system master plan. I will say that there is no state requirement for a review of the plan, which the OARs and the Board of Health Authority speaks to pretty clearly for the water system master plan, but for a facility plan, there really is not a review requirement or a submittal requirement for that to the state. However, we may elect them to do a courtesy review. That's an option we can do. We don't have to decide that today. But again, it's something down the line we may have to do once we get to a final plan. So the plan itself will take about 15 months. So again, similar timing to the water system master plan. Yes, you're just talking about one facility, but there's a whole lot of processes, a lot of data gathering, a lot of analysis that takes part and parcel into the whole plan effort. So Corolla Engineers was actually the lone proposer on this RFQ that we put out. We did go publicly with this through the qualification-based selection process. So again, just as a reminder, that's a process where you look at proposals, statements of qualifications from eligible firms, and analyze those proposals based on a non-cost review. So you're looking at qualifications and capabilities exclusively. Then once you select the firm, then you negotiate a scope of service and detailed costs. So we've gone through that. Carollo, I'll say again, they were the only ones that proposed on this RFQ for us. There may be reasons why that was in this case. One of the big ones I think is that a lot of the other firms are very busy. The timing being what it is, there are a number of water treatment, water quality issues statewide and I'll say region-wide that has a lot of the other firms busy doing work. And not to say that Carollo's not busy, they also have quite a bit of work that they're doing. But be that as it may, even though we had one firm propose, we felt very comfortable after reviewing their proposal to declare them as a qualified consultant to do this work. And made our determination. You can see the notice of intent to award and the exhibit, and the advertisement that we put out with the RFQ and exhibits A and B. I just want to say real quick, there's some other, I guess, indirect value to a plan like this, where again we have a treatment plant that's old and we know needs some improvement at some point beyond what we've done to date. It also serves as a very useful tool from a knowledge transfer standpoint. So we have a lot of staff district-wide and in the treatment facility as well that are eligible for retirement very soon. So not to say that they are anytime soon. We hope they're going to wait a while, but at the same time, it becomes a tool that we have where there's a lot of information concentrated for the future to make informed treatment improvement decisions on. So we're really looking forward to putting a great plan for the district together with Carollo.
So your bid was $299,657 to complete this, correct?
That's correct.
And we budgeted out $350,000.
We budgeted $350, and you may remember 17-19 biennium, we did budget an amount for that. We just were not able to get to the plan in that biennium because of other priorities. But we're there now, moving into the next biennium.
Any questions?
So it'll be October of next year before we have something in finished form from them?
Yeah,
Is this something we need to submit to the state?
No, it's not. It's not. Unlike the water system master plan, where the statute's very clear that we are required to submit it to Oregon Authority to get their review. For a facility plan like this, we're not required to do that. What we may do is submit it anyway as a courtesy review, or for them to provide us a courtesy review. They would have some helpful guidance, but there's not a regulatory requirement to do that.
And the step after that?
We move forward, we approve the plan, and the board will, similar to the water system master plan, we'll approve it and we move forward. I will say that, similar to the water system master plan, there will be intermediate milestones as we go along that will be coming to you, informing the board on our progress. So we anticipate one of those somewhat early in the process. We'll have a consultant here, like we did with the water system master plan, have them explain what they're doing, why they're doing it, and then bring you up to speed on our progress.
And one last question. Do we expect a bond measure in association with this plan?
That'll be determined once we come up with, I can't speak to financing, but certainly out of the plan, there will be a list of projects that we would want to consider.
And we need to see that first.
Pardon?
And we need to see that first before
Yeah.
we know the answer to my question.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
Adam, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other?
Oh, Gary? Comment.
Okay. I signed up for this one as well. I'm glad we're doing this project. I didn't know in the explanation of whether or not it included the high lifts and the intake in the analysis, is that considered part of the plan for your definition?
Yes.
Okay, yes. And the pumps that go from here to 152nd and so on?
Right.
Included as well?
The Highland pump station, yep.
Okay, concern I have is Oregon City's capacity, and whether or not this will also include some general ideas about plant expansion. Because NCCWC, we know, doesn't operate sometimes during the year. You know, the pipe is there. We know that Oregon City and West Lynn are almost at capacity in the intake station. And so, to get water, I'm wondering if this plan should also maybe include or consider some of the future requirements we may have to substitute and assist with Oregon City. So just a comment and a question for the staff to consider. I just thought I'd put that on the table for you.
Good, thanks, Gary.
Yeah, I can answer that if you want. The plan will look at current and future demand scenarios and come to conclusions as far as improvements go with those in mind.
I was thinking I agree with that, the proposal,
Yep.
in the general, that those things would be considered. Any other questions? Anybody else? Nope.
Okay, Commissioner Ancher,
Yes.
Commissioner French,
Yes.
Commissioner Garrison,
Yes.
Commissioner Kalani.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
So for the next item, I'm going to make a motion, and then after the second, I would like to speak to my motion. So, I move to establish the cost of living increase to the general manager's base salary at 3.4%, effective July 1st, 2019, pursuant to section 3.1 of the general manager's employment agreement. And I move to award the general manager a lump sum merit adjustment pursuant to section 3.2 of the general manager's employment agreement in the form of an increase to the general manager's vacation bank by 80 hours. And I want to speak to it, so the first part, 3.4%, is to put his increase in line with what we're giving unionized staff, which seems only fair. When I worked for Multnomah County, it was pretty much like that. And the second part is that I've heard that the general manager would rather have more vacation than a lump sum of money, which from my former working days is something I can relate to. And so that is the reason for my motion.
Could I ask you to repeat the second part of that?
The second part?
Yes,
Yeah, well, it's exactly like it is here.
yes, I got that part.
The last part is 80 hours.
Okay, so a lump sum of 80 hours to the vacation bank?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
It's not a lump sum, but an addition of 80
Right.
hours.
I just was reading it because that's the way the words are written.
The way it's written here, it says in the form of an increase to the general manager's vacation bank by 80 hours.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. And do you, are you changing the wording to what you told me, or are we going with what?
Well, I
As you
was
stared
just
ahead.
reading it as is on this piece of paper and filling in a number.
Okay, all right.
You know, so
I will
I
capture
didn't come
that.
up with the original wording.
Okay,
Then we're good.
I will capture that. Thank you.
Is that it?
Yes.
Does the board need a presentation on this matter now that you have your motion in front of you?
If you want to.
So just briefly, this is a matter that would come before the board annually pursuant to the general manager's employment contract, which gives the board the opportunity to consider two different compensation-related matters for the general manager. The first one, as reflected by the motion, has to do with a cost of living increase, which under the employment agreement is set at 2% unless the board decides to increase it beyond that 2%. So that's one thing that the board in its discretion is permitted to do. And then the other item that comes before the board is whether to award what's called a lump sum merit adjustment. And that is, I think, traditionally thought of as a bonus. It's a completely discretionary item on the part of the board should it wish to make that sort of award to the general manager. The question did come up of whether instead of a monetary lump sum, like a traditional bonus, whether that could take the form of an increase to the general manager's vacation bank as an alternative, and the board is fully within its authority to decide to take that approach instead of a dollar bonus. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
No question.
You were almost on the tip of your tongue, you thought you should say
It
that.
was,
Well-
when I swallowed it.
Oh. Call the question, I guess.
No question.
Anything else? Nobody's got anything else to say?
Apparently not.
Commissioner Andrew?
Yes.
Commissioner French?
Yes.
Commissioner Garrison?
Yes.
Commissioner Klein?
No.
Motion passes 3.
Oh, next move, okay. I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas County for Clackamas County Corrections Work-Through Support.
Second the motion.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'll give a brief presentation on this. We've had a relationship with Clackamas County where they've provided their work crew to work on items anywhere from doing some work around some of our pump stations, to helping with graffiti removal, helping with some cleanup type items around the park and so on along the river. We've traditionally done this through a memorandum of understanding with Clackamas County, and they've asked that we do it instead as a form of an intergovernmental agreement, and so this is why this is coming to you at this point. We budget roughly $10,000 a year for this work, so it's not a huge dollar figure, and it's actually been a pretty valuable program and relationship for us. So again, why it's before you is because they're going to proceed with doing this as an intergovernmental agreement. I'll point out that legal counsel has reviewed the IGA and has approved the language.
Have we had any problems with them?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Are the terms of the IGA in accordance with the memorandum of understanding? Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments?
Commissioner Andrew?
Yes.
Commissioner French?
Yes.
Commissioner Garrison?
Yes.
Commissioner Klein?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
So while you're prepared, I will point out on your consent agenda that Agenda CA-3 has an updated sheet, and the only change on that was the effective date, where the effective date reflects today's dates, not the May date. So that's the only change in that purple sheet.
Okay, so I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Commissioner Andrew?
Yes.
Commissioner French?
Yes.
Commissioner Garrison?
Yes.
Commissioner Kalani?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
$1, I don't know.
So when you're ready, we're ready to proceed with the backbone project updates. Are you ready? Okay, so Adam and Carol will take you on.
Good evening again, Commissioners. Happy to present a roughly quarterly update. We did this in February, and we'll kind of start right into it. Some of the things will look familiar. There's some new information that we're happy to present, and format of information. We'll talk through this, but we'll get moving along, right? Whether I'm asking your forgiveness or just be entertained, I've played around a little bit with animation, so you'll see like fading in and out photos and all that stuff. You don't see that on your slide, they're not, I wasn't able to focus for 2 minutes. All right, we're gonna move right into this. Picture, look at that. All right, so as far as an overview goes, we wanted to, again, give an overall status report on the projects, all 7 projects, reviewing the overall schedule, which you'll be very familiar with, and a financial recap. Also, individual updates on the active projects, so we'll talk through the specifics of the projects that are still in construction or have just recently or soon will complete construction. Major work completed, project costs, more of an elaborate breakdown that we've done in the past, and lots of pictures. And then Carol will talk about some kind of summary accounting detail, and then we'll wrap it up. So this is similar to a slide I presented last time, where just wanted to give you kind of a quick snapshot overview of where the projects are at. So as you can see, 4 of the 7 are complete or substantially complete. That's the Butterfield job, Rubber Springwater, Redland Reservoir, and Highway 224. The other 3, 152nd Reservoir, Hatton Pump Station, transmission main projects are in construction. Hatton transmission main is very close. It's actually very close to the last section being activated, going up the hill, and that being online, and then there's some other work that we're completing. Okay, there's the schedule. I gave you the large scale version in there. And again, just this was actually done at the end of April. Not much has changed in a month and a half. We're still looking at 152nd Reservoir as kind of the critical path project, where really that's extending out to the end of the year, possibly a little beyond that into early next year, depending on site finishes. So if the weather's great and they can do the paving work they need to do up there, it's likely we'll finish before the end of the year. Hatton Pump Station is kind of next behind that, where we're right now waiting for long lead items like motor starters and switchgear, electrical equipment. That stuff always seems to take a while to get here. So that's got us out doing startup and commissioning of the pumps around September. And then, as I mentioned, the Hatton transmission main, we're very close to completing, looking at August to get that completely done. So this slide, again, is our summary financial to-date information. It's really looking at a couple of things. You can see that for the projects, the column B may look familiar. That's the original estimate amounts from 2015, which we went over last time. And then the total expenditures that we presented you with, really that's the projected totals for the project. So project complete, knowing what we know today, that number that hasn't really changed from February when we presented you that information. And then the expenditures to date is as of May 31st, so pretty much real time, and that does not include in-house labor expenses. So then what we did is we provided the column E showing the difference between what we're saying is the projected total versus expenditures to date. And keep in mind that the column C, again, is established by completed designs, hard bids on projects. So that's a solid number, that 29.2 million, that should sound familiar. And then the 24,695, and at the bottom of column B again is what we spent to date. So about 4.5 million remaining, so that's a difference between those. If I'm going too fast, let me know. If you have any questions, feel free. Yes.
Yeah, it's column B and C, a new presentation.
No, it's not. That's really the same information we presented you with in February when we compared, we spent a lot more time comparing that original estimated amount from 2015. I think we called it original budgeted amount, but we're really trying to clarify the difference between a budget and an estimate, and Carol's going to talk about that a little bit later.
Did we present that information before February? In two columns, side by side?
No, we did not have the column C information
Okay.
to show in this way
All right, thank you.
before February.
So I will point out, column E is something new that you're seeing, where
That-
it looks at the
yes.
difference between that February, that C column total and what's spent to date. So it's more of a true picture that you can use and gauge as we go along
Correct.
on how much is left of the project.
Yeah, and that's based on too the fact that there was a supplemental budget passed recently that establishes basically that bottom line in column C is where we're at with the overall projects. So that's kind of the difference we're wanting to show you, is what we spent to date versus what we're saying the total project cost will be.
All right, thank you.
All right, so now we'll get into the specific project updates again for the 5 active projects. 152nd Reservoir. We've done quite a bit of work since March. And I picked March on these because again, that was February, March is kind of when we were last convening and talking about the backbone projects. So we've completed actually the entire tank structure as far as concrete work. You go out there, you can't look inside the tank anymore unless you fall down through the hatch. So we did 2 large concrete pours for the roof in 2 separate pours since March. And we're starting the circumferential pre-stressing, so basically large cables that are going to be wrapped around the tank and coated with shotcrete, spray-on concrete basically. And that's all part of that tank structure as designed to be a pre-stressed concrete tank. That work is being done by a subcontractor doing a tank. They're actually out there now doing some of the prep work, and they'll be starting the cable wrap next week.
So when is that gonna be finished, 152nd?
So we anticipate it being ready to fill and test around late August.
This
So,
year?
yeah, so by that period in time, probably, I'll say, September-ish, we'll have an active tank that can actually feed water to the system. Whether it's us or Sunrise, we have the shared use. But the site itself will not be complete, so there's a lot of backfilling material we have to bring back to bury it, and then do all the site finish work. So landscaping, storm system, paving, all that stuff has to be done to really truly wrap up the project. So that'll go into late into the year. But the tank itself will be online before that.
Okay.
So the backfill isn't part of the structure itself?
Correct.
Okay.
It's not. Yeah, it'll be surrounding the structure. Continue to do a lot of outreach with the community, and just a reminder that this is a project that we have Murray Smith, one of our engineering firms, doing construction services, so inspection, daily inspection, and coordination with the contractor. So this next slide, you'll see these are a similar template that we're going to show you for several projects. This is kind of a new presentation style along the lines of areas where we wanted to bring more information to you, and hopefully it's useful and clear. I will say that it's a work in progress. We appreciate feedback. So if you have any now or later, this is something that we may revise next time we do one of these, just to try to get clear information to you. So what I'm trying to show here is really, this is a life of project information, okay? So it's starting all the way from the preliminary planning phases, all the way through construction and completion. And the dollar amounts are what we've spent in those various years and phases of work. So preliminary planning, we started, really FY16. We did some design, really got into design in 17, completed design in 18, and then construction started in that same year, and then 19, of course, for full-blown construction. So you can see, as we get into the heavy, and this is a theme true to all the projects, as we get closer and get into construction, the costs go up a lot. That's the bulk of your schedule. So, and then the bottom line information at the bottom of the spreadsheet shows, again, just as a comparator, what that 2015 original project estimate was, and then spent to date, the 8.8 million, which correlates to the other table I showed you, table 1. And then what we're projecting to spend, the total project cost will be 9.4 million. That does include taking out the 4.5 million roughly that Sunrise has contributed. And then again, just as a recap, the difference between what we're estimating the project will cost and what we've spent to date. Okay?
I had a
Yep.
question on that last slide. The original 2015 project estimate, does that include the 4.5 million that Sunrise is going to contribute?
No, no. At that time, we did not have any indication that Sunrise was going to be partnering.
Okay. So in 2015, we figured 10 million, and if we look at what we're actually going to spend on it, it's 13.5 million. But you don't reflect that on this page anyplace.
Because we're not actually spending that. The cost of the tank is the 13.5, but our share of it is the 9.4, because Sunrise is actually the owner of their 1/3 share, approximately 1/3 share of that.
So we have given up that much money in equity.
We have written checks to the contractor, but Sunrise has written checks to us. And on our books, we will record a $9.4 million asset, and Sunrise will record a $4.5 million asset. We can't record it on both books.
I think a different way to think of it is we've paid for our portion of the equity, they've paid for their portion of the equity. So it's not like we've given up any equity, we're just paying for our share, they're paying for their share.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
The next slide helps define that a little bit better. This is really a summary again of looking at fiscal year progress and the life of the project, looking at what I'm calling changes or modifications, and that's a very broad term, and I'll explain that. But you can see that one of the items on there is the Sunrise component. That fly's helping me out here. The 4.5 million as a deduct from the total spent, right? So that's exclusive to this project, of course, but that is represented there. Really the key of this slide that I was hoping to provide you with was that there are modifications or changes, the word's really synonymous, but things that we did not anticipate either well or just didn't capture in those 2015 estimates as we explained back in January or February. Whether that was a degree of contingency or detailed design, because really those were preliminary planning numbers. But there are also changes that after the project has been completed and designed and bid and construction is underway, changes that occur during construction as just the animal of construction. There are things that come out of unforeseen site conditions or quantities that were adjusted beyond what we estimated they should be. We actually ended up putting, more feet of pipe in the ground, for example, was just an example. So they're kind of, what I'm trying to communicate is there's categories of modifications or changes that occur through the life of a project. So you can see as you look down both of those columns in the middle there, trying to describe what those changes were and relative costs associated with those per year that the change occurred, is a collective. So you may have had a design change, or added some element to design the project that added you design costs, okay? But that also could trickle down to the construction cost because you added the design element and you had to go build that extra or additional element. All of those changes were done to accomplish the needs of the project, not only, but also the needs of the backbone and reach the goal of constructing what we needed to construct. So I'm hoping that's clear. I realize it's a lot of information and maybe too granular, or, again, I appreciate feedback, and this is kind of a new approach that we thought would be helpful. So I can talk through some of these if we want, or I guess I could open it up to questions maybe as the way to do it, or we do have a couple projects to go through, so I don't want to take too much time, but at the same time I want to answer your questions.
I think what we might do is give the board a chance to kind of digest some of this and maybe schedule a work session where we want to be respectful and trying to figure out what would be helpful information to be reporting out to the board. And so we're trying to present some additional information that we can talk more about it in the work session.
Question?
A very brief narrative on how Sunrise became an equity partner might be helpful to me.
Sure. Would you like that now, or?
You can do it in 2 or 3 minutes.
We identified, I think it was 2017, with Sunrise, based on some joint planning with them, that they had some storage needs in this area, their service area. We had property, we had a reservoir we needed to build. After some study, we determined that we did not require the full storage capacity of this reservoir to meet our present and future needs. And Sunrise said, we'd like to partner with you, and so we developed an intergovernmental agreement with them, and it was approved by the board, and here we are.
We did have a lot of discussion at the time. It wasn't just
So
a slam
their
dunk.
storage needs are beyond our storage needs to supply them?
This helps serve some of their storage needs.
Oh,
They have other needs in their district, in their master planning, their long-term planning, that this is only a fraction of.
It actually acts similar to like a clear well. Like we have a clear well at the water treatment plant that we pump water up to our system. This is used similarly for them because they have a pump station that's close to that area as well. They don't get the traditional fire storage and storage for their in-system. It's more of a clear well type thing that they can pump up into their system from.
I was gonna say,
thank you.
based on something that Commissioner Garrison said about, well, it really costs $13 million, maybe when we do the charts, we should put that down and then put under it right away that Sunrise is paying this much so that we have a better idea of what it actually costs. I mean, it's just a matter of how to put the chart together.
And my concern with that is that as far as an asset that goes on the CRW books, it has to be net of that
Oh, I
Sunrise
see.
amount, because
Okay.
Sunrise is also gonna record an asset on their books.
Okay, that's fine then.
And this is something that we've coordinated with the auditors too, to make
Okay.
sure that we're reporting this correctly, and so they've
Okay.
chimed in and given us the chance to know to do this as well.
And frankly, it's becoming more and more common because it's very much more cost effective to partner.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I agree, thank you.
Yeah, certainly a great opportunity for us, and we hope to maybe have opportunities like that in the future. One theme that I wanted to call out here, and again, kind of consistent with the other projects as well, is something that I brought up in February about those 2015 estimates. And we identified that certainly from a contingency estimating standpoint, we were light on contingency, especially for the projects that are more specialized, you know, are not the typical that CRW does year to year, which are more the transmission main, water line type projects. So for storage tanks or pump stations, we found that, you know, industry practice really has us at a much higher contingency for those very high-level planning estimates, which is what the 2015 estimates are for in order to procure the bond. So when I make comments in these tables, like higher overall cost to construct detailed elements of work, that's really part of that theme. You know, that one, we didn't have the detailed design in 2015 at all for any of the projects. And then you go along and 3, 4 years from now, 2, 3, 4 years from then, you have inflationary, more detail because you actually have a finished design and a bid price to build this stuff. So there's a cost delta there. Okay. I'll move into some photos.
Great.
We got some more great drone shots. This is the reservoir with half the roof done. As you can see, you can still see into the tank itself and the columns that are standing there waiting for the other half of the roof. The first roof half was poured late April, and then the second half they did May 10th, I believe. So kind of span of time there, everything's to cure up. This is another view from the side of that roughly the same shot. You can see here all the shoring that's in, or the scaffolding that's in place to install the formwork, the plywood, the formwork that is there for the pour. So they remove all that, that's all out of there now. Bringing it in is real easy because there was a nice open, we didn't have all the walls poured yet. So getting all of it in was great, and then getting it out, all you have is two hatches, two 4x8 hatches in the roof that you have to take it all apart and pull it out in small pieces. So there's kind of a view of what it looks like now. There's one of the hatches that actually is a temporary stairway for us to get down in there and get inside the tank before it's all full of water and look around. And, there's a lot of finish work that they do inside prior to doing the raft work that I mentioned earlier. This was taken just about a month ago. We're down there looking around. You can see hopefully just the sheer scale of this. It's a 6 million gallon reservoir, so it's good size for us. Just another view from another angle, the other hatch, and then you can see kind of back. I'm standing in the one side, obviously, and then that's the whole other half, kind of shadowed by the scaffolding that they had just poured. And then this here is forms for the mixing system. So the inlet pipes that come in, and there is, these are going to be concrete bases that support a large 24-inch diameter pipe with various, they call them duck bills, but they're pinched valves essentially that control how the water flows into the tank and thus provides good circulation to keep it mixed well. Anyway, cool stuff. I get excited about it. All right, Redland Reservoir. This one, I'm happy to say, we are just about done. The retrofitted reservoir number 2, the old tank, is all cleaned up, and we just took a sample on it today, filled it and sampled it, and hopefully that clears tomorrow and we'll be able to get it back on the system. The new tank has been online since early in the year. But for both reservoirs, we did painting this last period, in and out. We did some piping work. We replaced the drain piping. A lot of stuff for tank 2 is what we did this period. All that retrofit work that we included with this project, as you recall. A great time to do that since we had a contractor on site and spend a little more money now rather than trying to bring them in later for work that we knew we'd have to do anyway. So cleaned up the site, very nice, site fencing and grading, just really kind of transformed what it used to be, you know. And I'll show you some pictures to represent that. And this is another one that we've got an engineering consultant helping us with inspection and other construction period services with the contractor. Again, a similar table, life to date costs. by fiscal year. Again, you kind of see that progression as you move through design and get into construction, the costs spent increase, or the extend trend, I guess, increases. And then bottom line, again, we have about, as of end of May, about $500,000 left of what we anticipate spending on the project. And again, they are very close. They're finishing up some punch list items as we speak, so very close to completion. And then again, just a view it. Oh. Question?
No.
The view at changes and modifications. Some of the more obvious ones on this project than others. We did have a few kind of outstanding items that did show up during construction. As you recall, the steel price with the tariffs last year, that was a $75,000 increase that we paid. And then we did some culvert work that we included with this project for the access road leading up there, the private road, to clean those up. And then we had some permitting requirements that the county, through their review, put on us for some of the stormwater and site development type, site finish type work that actually added construction costs to build those, because those were not in the original finished design. Okay, this is the old tank. I thought that was kind of cool because we have to get equipment in there to do the work, so we got to cut a hole in there. You can't really tell where it is now because it's all painted over and it's really nice, but got to get the lifts in for the painters, the blasters to do all their retrofitting and recoating work inside. Really inside the tank, it was in pretty good shape. There's things that corrode over time just as a matter of course, and your hardware, your nuts and bolts on pipes and fittings inside that tend to get eaten up over time, no matter what. Ladders and that sort of thing. So those were all retrofitted and cleaned up as part of this work. There's a view inside of the tank shell, the dome, and they ground all this off and re-welded those are all plates of steel originally that were moved together. And then the walk up to the vent cap at the top, this was all redone to make it a much safer step, non-skid stair type step, and then a full rail. OSHA's changed a lot in the last 50 years. So. This was not the greatest shot, but kind of cool. We got 2 welders on lifts that are up there making fireworks. That was fun. Give you an idea of what was going on up there. And then here's the outside of that same old reservoir with some of the equipment and work that they're doing on the manway up there. And I guess this is a quiz. You probably guess it, but if you only saw the bottom photo, which one is the new tank and which one's the old tank? Any guesses? All right.
I think the one to the right's the new one?
One to the right is the new? Is that a consensus? I won't ask for a motion.
I don't think so.
No.
No? Okay,
No,
well,
the left.
it's actually the left hand.
Okay, I'm wrong, sorry.
The perspective's a little tricky because I am closer to this one. This tank is about half the size and volume to this one. Now, height, they're the same, but diameter, this guy's a lot bigger. But yeah, it was a trick question. That's the site, pretty much how it sits today. They've done a little more grading on the gravel access and clean this up. They're gonna seed all this and get fencing, retaining walls all done. So it's really cleaned up the site very nice. Okay, Hatton Pump Station. We are making a lot of progress on the pump station project. Since March, I think we basically got from shell type buildings, CMU block exteriors all the way to pretty much substantially complete buildings. Now it's just putting the guts into those buildings. So the pumps are in, the emergency generator, which sits in its own enclosure outside, is in. The site piping is all pretty much done. And they built a storm pond and some storm piping to control the stormwater flow off of that site. So again, it's amazing how even week to week, how a site like this will transform. This is another one that we've got a consultant engineer helping us with, construction phase. And again, just a common theme, looking at costs, where we started design back in 17. And, 18, and the construction we started actually last November about. So it seems longer to me, but a lot of work has got done in the last 7, 8 months. There you have your bottom line again. And I didn't say this earlier, but just keep in mind again that this is not just construction costs, of course. When we talk bottom line, total projected cost of the project, spent to date, these are all costs. So construction, design, internal staff, overhead, and any other related permitting fees, all that good stuff.
So when we did the original project estimate, were we thinking about all this other stuff that also needed to be put into the project budgetarily? Does that make sense?
We were thinking about it in concept.
Yeah, I meant in
Right.
terms, because what we have here is we have $2,190,000 is the project estimate. So then we have the project to date, and then it says total project. So the total so the estimate did not include all these other things.
Right.
Okay, so,
Right.
okay.
Yeah, and like I explained, I think back in February, in this next slide, I got into a little more detail. You know, in that left column there, the modifications, changes from 2015 pre-design, which really was that concept level preliminary design where we had a certain contingency in that, but really not the level of contingency that we would have wanted. So you have just a more defined design as you get to a finished design, for one thing. That things like land use requirements, permitting requirements, real true layout of a facility like this, building type, that information we're using is probably a bit dated or just too basic really for a complete estimate. Design and construction engineering services is another one of those categories that we really didn't, for the 2 reservoir projects and the pump station, we really didn't estimate those, the cost of hiring a consultant to do design work and construction phase work, which is always a logical transition where you have a designer design it and then they inspect it and make sure the contractor meets the design through construction. Those costs were significantly lower in those early 2015 estimates than reality. And again, like I said, higher overall cost to construct, permit requirements. We did quite a bit with, this is not the bunker style pump stations that we built in the past, CMU block, not a lot of fancy on some of those older ones. This had definitely a lot more of the architectural finish to kind of get that residential appearance, and you'll see in the pictures where we're trying to blend it a little more. And that was somewhat related to a negotiation with the property owner who sold us this piece of property as well. But it really is, I won't say that it's unique, we're not unique in that. A lot of facilities are being built today with the same type of look. So there's the pump station building in the background. The yellow siding, that's just the unfinished, unpainted color. It's actually a gray tone, it's a finished color, so it's kind of got a grayish roof with the grayer siding and the stack stone base, and then the trim is all white. So and this building here is the surge building, where there are 2 surge tanks for the inlet and outlet piping. So when the pumps kick on and off, or if there's a large main break on the system somewhere, those tanks are there to help suppress any surge or cavitation that would happen that could damage your pumps. And then this guy is the emergency generator, a 1 megawatt or 1,000 kilowatt generator. That, again, we're partnering with PGE on, so we own it, but they're that agreement that the board approved, they'll be maintaining it for us. Here's a better overview of the site. Run the road is right here. The pole that PGE is going to run the power from, they just put in right there. So they still need to run power to the transformer, and then that gets us into both buildings and we can start firing things up. This is all the site work I mentioned. This is a little bit beyond the actual property. It's just a 1/4 acre, so really going to be for now this is a dated photo, but now there's a chain link fence that circles the site. The stormwater, this has all been laid down with topsoil, it's all very, much more finished look. There's sidewalks around some of the edges of the buildings, and this will all be paved when we're all done. Just kind of another review. Those are the surge tanks, they're not staying there, they're gonna go in that building. And there's a shot inside of, not long after they put the pumps in. So there are the 3 pumps. We actually have a can in place just to the right of the pump here for a 4th pump if we ever want to add one. So there's some planning that we figured down the line. We may want to bring another pump in if the demands merit. But got the pumps in, that's a big deal. You know, can't run them yet, don't have power, and they're not gonna go anywhere, but they are in, and we're waiting, like I said, for the large electrical deliveries. Okay, patent transmission, then I'll be done talking about projects. Oh, no, that's not true, one more. So, patent transmission, we started late last year, and again, they've made great progress. Essentially, all the pipes in the ground, let's say that. Everything's tested on Hatton Road and active. They're just finishing up testing the main that goes up the hill to the tank site, up the hillside. And they're driving piles at certain locations out there where it's such a steep hill on that last run to the tank that we're putting in concrete anchor blocks to hold the line in place. If there were ever a landslide or some other seismic activity, that would give us a lot more assurance that that line's not going anywhere. And it is kind of on a ridge going up the hill. So they're doing that last bit of support work with that piece of pipe. And Hatton Road is paved. If you've been out there, you'll see it's a nice new road. That worked very well. That was a partnership again that we had with the county, and that's worked out very well. This project, being a water main project, we did see again some increases beyond those original 2015 estimates, but not the degree of the reservoir or pump station project. So again, the reason being there that we're very good at estimating water main work because we do that year by year. We have a good handle on scoping that type of work, a good handle on cost. So you'll see fewer changes for a project like this as you compare it to, again, those 2015 numbers. Again, that's just your spend through start to finish. Again, we're almost done. And then the modifications type work, about just under 400,000 that we're seeing in difference between what we had estimated we got planned versus what we're spending. And yeah, I think Todd had a great suggestion, just again, that this, I realize this is a lot of information, and just the format is different enough where we may want to do a work session in the future to help kind of break this down more and just continue to report this out to you. Okay, a few photos about Hatton. This is just your basic old waterline tie-in at one of the side streets, Vic Drive. The crew's out there doing good work. This is all past. I think this was done in March or April. This is a shot of the hillside, so you can see can't really tell the steep slope so much, but you're in the woods, working inside easement areas, so we're trying to keep our work as contained as possible. The property owners have been very gracious and tolerant of construction noise, construction dust, all that good stuff, and getting these pipes in the ground. And then there's Hatton Road. Nice, and they've got it striped now, so. Right, yeah? Oh, the first part they did. I know it's the not today. Spring water to Grumman, they had striped when I was out there today, but not, you're right, not the rest of it. But it sure drives nice. All right, Highway 224, and then we'll move on. I really want to highlight this project for a couple reasons. One, it's done. and it's finished. I mean, and not only that, but the fact that since March, we started construction and we finished construction. So we put in over a mile of pipe. I really want to just shout out to the contractor in this respect. Trenchline Excavation was the contractor. They did a fabulous job, really from day one. They came in very organized, very motivated, they had a schedule, they were ready to go, they had a plan. That doesn't always happen. So that efficiency really yielded a great finished product for us, even with some bumps along the way, which is, again, common in construction. Namely, a reduction in the cost that we're paying for inspection services. This was because it was ODOT right-of-way, it was a night job, and we did not have staffing capacity to handle assigning someone to night work. So we used one of our on-call firms, RH2, and they provided an inspector to do that. So because the project got done way ahead of schedule, that meant less inspection time. So there was a lot of savings there. A few little things with cost increases, but overall, the project has come in very, very well from a budget standpoint. But with ODOT's paving requirements, they expanded the paving areas beyond what we had estimated in our finished design. So wider width essentially was required in the plan. That added some paving costs. So again, just the bottom line, based on life of project, this one really tuck it into 1 year, fiscal year of design, and then construction. So very short time frame here. We designed this one in-house. Joe Eskew did a great job on design, and he's been the project manager on this. So kudos to staff, and again, our contract staff as well. One other item, we did have an unforeseen utility conflict out there one night. So we came across a utility that was improperly located, and it resulted in basically a day of downtime that accrued a little bit of extra cost, and then we had to take some time to realign it, move the pipe over. It wasn't a huge deal, but at the same time there was some cost there, and we're actually hoping to work with that utility to see how we can try to rectify some of that cost. A few pictures for Highway 224. This is the bore pit right at the junction there where the market is, the nursery and market and taco stand. They dug a bore pit, installed the casing, and put pipe through. So the nice thing about that is you can do that during the day. You're not cutting in the roadway. That went pretty smoothly. And then just a few shots of the nighttime pipe work. If you were out there between the hours of 9 p.m. and 4 or 5 a.m., I think, you would have been delayed by some pipe work. And then there's the finished product. The good thing was that ODOT did not make us do a full street overlay. They're reasonable in that sense, but there were some extra width areas, as I mentioned in the base plan. All right, so one more trivia, fun fact, and you kind of have a cheat sheet because you've got the non-animated version. But we actually did not have a best backbone picture to date contest. But this is definitely
You came up with one.
yeah, this is definitely the winner, at least to date. You might get some better ones. But right now, and if anyone, without looking at your slides, can guess the significance of this photo, I don't know what.
It's
I don't have a
water
door
over
prize.
the bridge.
It is water over the bridge, absolutely right. It is. This was the flow test, the flushing that we did on the 224 line, and this is actually south of Carver Bridge, so water's running across and coming out of a hydrant there, and through our diffuser. That's the intersection of Hatton and Springwater Road. So very excited about that. It is officially, as of April 30, I believe, was when they did this. We've got water across the bridge, so great news.
CRW water treatment plant water.
Yes, yes, as it said. All right, I'll hand it over to Carol. and then
Now,
we'll-
after all the good pictures, we're getting to the kind of boring financy stuff. Again, Adam and I have been working together and we're trying to enhance our reporting to all of you. We want to give you the information that you need to be able to make valid and relevant decisions. So what I've got here on this graph is the projects with the spend by year, because you know, I've got to live in two worlds. I have to live in the budgetary world, how much did we say we were going to spend, and we don't want to exceed that appropriation. But in real life, these projects don't start on July 1 and finish by June 30. Many of these projects, as you can see, go over multiple years. The lines that I have on there, the green line was the original bond estimate number that we used when we went out for the bonds, and then the darker color is the projected totals that we're working on now. And if you recall from the budget, we do have 3 projects that will continue into the next biennium, and that is the 152nd Avenue Reservoir and the Hatton Pump Station and Hatton Transmission Main. So those 3 projects, we have appropriated money in the budget that you just adopted this evening to complete those projects in the next biennium. And then if we go back and look at budgetary, and again, you know, I came to the board and asked for a supplemental budget to provide more cash funding to work on these projects through June 30th. So we have the original budget for fiscal 18 and fiscal 19, we presented to the board as a biennial budget. It was $20.2 million, we added $3 million. What we've spent so far in the biennium is $21 million, so we still have 2.1, almost $2.2 million that we anticipate spending in June to get us to the end of the year. So, in listening to Moss Adams' presentation, again, we recognize that we need to do a better job of getting full information to you timely and kind of looking at that broader, the big picture as well as the detail. So what we would like to do is provide additional cost detail and then comparisons of those life-to-date costs and get that in front of the board. As soon as we know changes, get that in front of the board. And we also want to be clear in the definitions how we refer to things. So the estimate was what we said, hey, we need to do these projects for phase 1, and we think it's going to cost about this much. We had not done any design work or very little design work at that time. And we kind of did a quick turnaround on going out to the bonding community. And our timing was great. We were out there when nobody else was, which helped us get the premium that we got. But we're going to call that an estimate, and that is like pre-planning. And again, we learned when we do those estimates, we need to add contingencies. We need to anticipate inflation. And so those future estimates that we provide, we feel will be much better. And then when I use the word budget, a budget's still an estimate. We don't know exactly how much anything's going to cost until it's done. But it's an estimate of an expenditure for a set period of time. So when we start talking budget numbers, we're talking about what are we going to do in this biennium or in this year of the biennium. And so those are going to be kind of the definitions that we'll attempt to be consistent with going forward. You want that last?
Oh, sure.
Your question.
Oh, question?
Yes.
Harold, don't we further need to break down our estimate to original estimate and current estimate? Because that's what got away from us.
What got away from us is we were right on track with all of our current estimates, and we just didn't look back to compare them to the
Have
original.
the original estimate.
Yeah.
Right.
So I
So we
think,
need to break estimate down to those 2 parts at the very least.
So that's what we're kind of, if you go back a few
Yeah,
slides.
Actually, I'm gonna do this.
So, oh,
Sorry.
too far.
Look, I like that picture.
Slower. Where are you going?
I'm going to this table right
Oh,
here.
you're on the beginning.
Yes,
Okay,
That's,
yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
and we have it right there, the
Yeah.
original estimate amount.
yes.
so yeah, I think if we do that, you know, as projects move along, you know, from an early design phase and then into finished design. We get a bid, we got hard dollar amounts for construction, and then through construction, you know, get something to compare to.
So
That's
would-
really the value.
Would any of those columns qualify as the current estimate?
C.
Column C.
Column C.
Yeah.
Column C, projected total expenditures. Okay, thank you. That helps a lot.
And I was just recently at a conference, and I went to as many sessions on capital assets as I could. And there was a lot of stories like this. And in fact, there was one agency that does not do an estimate. I don't know how they do the bonding. I think it's like the Los Angeles Metro, so they're doing bonding all the time. But they don't provide estimates until they've got a 65% design. I don't think we really have that luxury, because we're not constantly bonding, right? But it, you know, it does bring to the fore that it's really hard to get a valid estimate if you don't know what you're building yet.
Right. Oh, absolutely. But you still need to track from where you start.
Yeah.
It's like Daniel Boone now, he was great at tracking. And he got on the track of a deer one time, and he got going the wrong way when he tracked it clear back to where it was born.
Oh, my Lord.
You guys gotta wrap it up.
Well,
Yeah.
one of my kids, actually, that qualifies as a dumb dad joke, so I like it, I like it. The bottom line here, just that last bullet, really, again, is a reminder, you know, we're getting the value that we had hoped to get for the phase one project, for the backbone, at a cost and schedule that will accomplish all the required program elements. So if you look at the map, you know, the overall, we're getting what we need to get for completion of phase one of the backbone.
Well, thank you. That's
Thank you.
Yeah.
a big,
Yeah.
good, very good presentation, and I think it's helped a lot. Things look a lot different from what they did 3 years ago,
Yes,
fortunately.
yes.
But it's well done, and you and the staff and the contractors have done very, very well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I like the pictures, thank you.
Happy to provide.
Now, if there's anybody that would wish to take a 5-minute break, let's do it now.
I'll give you a glass of water.
I've only got 5
Carol?
minutes or
Yeah,
less
thank you.
of stuff, but if you need to go,
We need a break. Okay, let's go.
we ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so, just real briefly, last, item on the agenda is the management report, and that's contained in agenda item 9 in your packet. A couple things I want to point out, you have a folder that's in front of you, a couple things, obviously the monthly updates is included in that. One thing I'll point out is that we are starting to include information as it relates to the river flow. You'll notice that it's that little bit of red line there is our current information. I will note that obviously when we put out this information in this packet, it's been a little bit of that was about a week ago information. If you look, unfortunately, that red line has dropped right down pretty substantially to those levels that we saw in the kind of that 2016, 2018 period. So we'll continue to track that and give you reports as part of that monthly packet throughout the summer and fall. Second item to be aware of is we have our billing inserts, so a newsletter that will go out with the June bill, so you have a copy of that. So we're highlighting many of the projects that you learned about tonight, in addition to also advertising for the budget committee members. We have the one vacancy on the budget committee. The board agreed that we probably should wait until after we're done with the budget approval process, and so we'll go through a solicitation and get applications and bring those forward to you for your consideration. And then the last thing is we did receive a letter that was addressed to the Board of Commissioners. So we had Commissioner Conley open that letter, and we provided a copy of that letter to you from the Secretary of State's office, just again congratulating us for the submittal of our audit last year, and for also they recognized the fact that we did receive the GFOA Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, so congratulations to Carol and her staff, although we've already reported on that. And that they found no findings, and so they're pleased with that. So that was all good news. As it relates to the management report, a couple items I just want to highlight real quick is with respect to the Clackamas River water providers. One of the presentations we had was just kind of an update from PGE. One of the things we talked to them about is when they release water from Timothy Lake in the fall, we're talking to them about maybe holding back some of that water until so it can be released more in October. That helps us with some of the flow, could help us with some of the flow. I want to stress that it could. This is one of those things that, again, working with them and a partner to try to look at other ways that we can both get benefits out of the water that they release. And then also just continued our partnership with them as far as some of the monitoring as it relates to algal blooms and so on, and how we test information or test samples that they collect, so we can get a better idea of what's happening up in the watershed. We also had a report from the Department of Environmental Quality, providing an overview of the updated source water assessment documents. It was nice, very complimentary as far as what we've done in the Clackamas Basin as far as working together as water providers through the CRWP and a lot of the work that we do in the watershed, and felt that we are considerably farther ahead than many others as it relates to kind of being aware of the source water issues and things that we need to be tracking and watching for. Moving on to the Regional Water Providers Consortium Board meeting. Commissioner Anger represents the board on that. They did elect a chair and vice chair, Mark Fagan with the counselor from the city of Beaverton, and that was chair, and Dave Judah from the city of Hillsborough is the vice chair. As far as Clackamas representation on the executive committee, there was 3 at-large positions that are up, and so Ernie Platt will continue to serve in that role with Sunrise Water, and then the other 2 representatives, one's from Rockwood PUD and the other one's from the city of Tigard. I also thought it was interesting, Portland City Commissioner Amanda Fritz was there, the Water Bureau. We don't often get the opportunity to have a Portland commissioner there, which was nice, even though
And it was her second time.
Was it her second time?
It was her second
Oh,
time,
geez,
yeah.
she
She
missed
sat
the
next
first
to me
one.
both times.
So I did think it was interesting where she did, and you may have seen some things in the newspaper, that she's encouraging to move forward on 3 city charter amendments. So those are significant actions as it relates to protecting the Bull Run watershed. Second, dealing with allowing Portland Water Bureau facilities to be used for parks. And the third was an issue that came up a number of years ago with, where she wants to make sure that it's okay that Portland Water Bureau employees can help out with national disaster relief efforts. And so Portland Water Bureau, I believe, I don't know if they're actually sued or there was some action taken against them when they tried to help out with the flooding and the levee breaks in New Orleans many years ago. So. Moving on, they also approved at that meeting the addition of the city of Newburgh as a member of the Regional Water Providers Consortium, but they're going to do it under a different membership structure since they're outside of the Tri-County area. I did want to highlight under water quality the fact that next week will be an important week because we'll have our on-site laboratory assessment to get certification, so that's scheduled to be June 18th. Staff's been doing a lot of work as it relates to getting that set up, and that's not a simple process. And so kudos to them, but we'll see what the results hold and hopefully we'll get certified. So we're doing our testing officially after July 1. Some other things, just looking ahead real quick, just wanted to note for Commissioners Kalani and Commissioner French, we'll be holding our agenda setting meeting on Wednesday, June 19th. So that's a date we've talked about, but a different date than normal.
At 11, right? 11 a.m.?
I'm going to look to Carrie and she's nodding yes.
Yes,
So.
yes.
Also, there's no board work session in June, so we're just down to this meeting this month, and in preparation, since we won't be meeting again before then, our office will be closed Thursday, July 4th, in observance of Independence Day. So, with that is all the items that I have to report on. So that concludes my report.
Any questions? Yeah. Well, you were off for 5 minutes.
I knew it. I knew it, as soon as I leave the room. I don't know about you.
What does it mean to Okay. Agenda item 11. Oh, that's for the
Yeah.
reimbursements.
Yeah.
So if there's no other questions,
I have a statement.
oh, okay.
Jim, public comments?
Oh, public
And
comment.
more?
Oh, it's just these guys. Since Commissioner McNeil is not here, I do want to go on record to say, we want to thank him for his 6+ years of giving his service to the board, and I'm sorry that he couldn't come tonight to get his plaque, but I want to thank him for his service.
You're yeah, I have his plaque and I'll drop it off where he is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Time to go home.
Thank you.